Hi, everyone. I want to welcome you to this introduction to the Refocus project, which is an initiative of Roundabout Theater Company. I'm Jill Rafson. Roundabout's our Associate Artistic Director, and I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Morton. I'm Roundabout's literary manager.
Hi, everyone. I am Nafisa Monroe. I'm a teaching artist for Roundabout Theater Company.
Great. And we want to welcome all of you, whether you're from Roundabout's audience, some of our peer theaters across the industry, our friends from the New York Public Library. We're happy to have all of you joining us to dig a little bit into what the Refocus project is. So I think I'm going to tell you all a little bit of background about just how this project came together. Essentially, it came from an examination of the question of what is a classic play? What are these plays that we have decided over time make up the American theater canon? And essentially, Roundabout has realized that we were founded to do revivals of the classics. What does it mean when we say that? And to some extent, a classic is a play that you've probably heard of, a play that gets revived a lot of times. You can see it in many different versions. But also, as a theater that has Broadway houses, a classic can be a play that we decide to do a revival of, because it means that a lot of people get to see it and it becomes part of the conversation again. And so we've kind of been looking at what's the power of the spotlight that Roundabout has when it almost gets to decide which plays are classic plays. And to go back to a really specific example, we did a revival of a play called Machinal by Sophie Treadwell several years back. And it was a play that had never been revived on Broadway before. People really responded positively to the production. And they also said, wow, there's this incredible play by a woman who we've never really heard very much about. And subsequent to that Broadway production, that play started getting seen other places. It started getting done around the country. The script started showing up on the syllabus for many college courses. And we realized, okay, by shining our spotlight on certain plays, we have the power to really make them part of the current conversation. And that's an exciting opportunity. So we started thinking about which plays have essentially been left behind by history. And that almost immediately took us to communities that have just been historically underrepresented in the theater. It doesn't mean people from those communities weren't writing plays, they just weren't getting the same attention as the ones that were more appealing, perhaps, to the largely white, largely male critical establishment of their times. So we started looking into those more marginalized communities to see what were they writing, what were the plays that were exciting, mostly in the 20th century in this case. And we decided to spend this first year of the Refocus project really centering the work of plays by Black American writers. And that's yielded a whole lot of really wonderful plays that we're going to be sharing with you over the coming weeks. And Anna, do you want to talk a little bit about how the project came together and sort of the curation and research process that brought us to the 5 plays that we're doing readings of?
Absolutely. As you might imagine, there was a ton of research involved. We used a number of different resources to start culling a list of what plays we might want to be looking into, and then, of course, had to go and find those scripts, which was a little bit harder than one might have wanted. So we looked at a lot of different really helpful resources, including the amazing websites and information put together by organizations like Classics and Hedgepig Theater Ensemble, the wonderful website Black Work Broadway that lists a full kind of take on all of the plays by Black writers that have been produced on Broadway. We also looked at the production histories of theaters like the Negro Ensemble Company and Woody King's New Federal Theater, and looked at many of the works by writers that were writing during the Harlem Renaissance. And through those resources, we're able to track down some anthologies that many of which are out of print at this time, but were published in the 60s and 70s that have amazing plays in them that haven't been seen for many, many years. And through the help of libraries and some used bookstores and reselling websites, we're able to purchase some of those anthologies for a little bit less money than probably the new copies go for now. And in starting to look at some of these plays, we found amazing works by many female playwrights who were working on plays that were either one act, or many of them were actually even shorter, 10 to 15 minutes, probably when you put them up on stage, but really tell these dramatic stories that kind of pack a punch by the end of them, even just in their quick wrap up. And we also found a lot of intergenerational plays and plays that told stories of families from kind of great grandparents down to young children, all of whom were living in the same house or in the same town, and what that community experience was like. So we had to make sure to budget for and leave time in our rehearsal processes for working with child actors, because we knew right away that that was going to be a big part of what we were doing. And also some plays that incorporated a lot of really wonderful music, which I think Nafisa will talk a little bit about in a little while when we talk about one of the shows that we're, the readings that we're doing. And it was really important to us when we were kind of deciding what plays we were going to be focusing on for the 5 readings that we're producing, that we balance stories about the sort of traumatic and tragic experiences that Black folks have had in this country since the beginning of time, with stories that focused on the joy and health and love and humor that is present in so many Black communities across this country. And so hopefully the 5 plays that we are doing readings of will kind of share a little bit of both of those moods and tones throughout the readings. So the plays that we're going to be doing readings of include Rachel by Angelina Weld Grimke, available from April 23rd to April 26th. Home by Sam Art Williams, available from April 30th to May 3rd. I Got a Home by Shirley Graham Du Bois, available May 7th to May 10th. Spunk by Zora Neale Hurston, available May 14th to May 17th. And just to note that this is a different play than the adaptation called Spunk that George C. Wolfe wrote of a couple different Zora Neale Hurston plays. This actually is a play adaptation of her short story Spunk that Hurston wrote herself. And finally, Wine in the Wilderness by Alice Childress, available from May 21st to May 24th. So Nafisa, do you want to talk a little bit more about the context around each of those plays specifically?
Definitely. Thank you, Anna. I do want to say, I'm going to try to keep it short for the intro video, but that each one of these plays will have its own individual theater talk where we'll delve a little bit deeper into the writer and their life and the process that they went through to write the play. I'm going to go a little chronologically, not a little, I will go chronologically based on when the play was written, at least based on what we know in terms of when the play was written. So Rachel by Angelina Weld Grimke was considered one of the first protest plays because it was one of the first anti-lynching plays. And it was written partially in response to the movie Birth of a Nation, which came out in 1915. But also it was in response to this incredible mob violence that was really taking place, especially in the South. It was really about her choosing to write this play to have a political, to state something politically. And she specifically wrote it for white women, which I think is for a white female audience. And which I think is fascinating. Anyways, you can delve more into that in the theater talk. Then we've got Spunk, which was in 1935. This play kind of got lost to the wheels of time and didn't get refound until the 90s. And then I think its first production maybe was in 98. Double check me on that, but somewhere around there. But what I love about Zora Neale Hurston was, first of all, she did everything, right? She was a novelist, she was an anthropologist and a playwright. And she was ahead of her time. I mean, I think a lot of people know that, but with this play, it was probably one of the first plays with music, as opposed to the traditional American musical of the time. And it included a lot of folklore, it included a lot of parables, and it had a sense of ritual in it, which didn't really become a really defined part of the Black theater movement until, well, what we call the Black theater movement, which was in the 60s. And then we've got I Got a Home by Shirley Graham Du Bois, which a lot of people don't know that she was married to W.E.B. Du Bois, which I think is fascinating. This is around the time also when the Federal Theater Project was going, the Negro units that were a part of the Federal Theater Project. Also, this was around the time when the American Negro Theater was founded. So I just wanted to make sure that that's kind of the time period that I Got a Home was written in. There was a feeling or a sense of a turning of the tide, if you will, in terms of Black American playwrights being recognized and theater that they are writing for themselves, right? That is about them, for them, and by them, which was one of W.E.B. Du Bois's challenges, basically, in all the things that he challenged Black folks to do. One of the things that I found really fascinating about Shirley is, or Ms. Graham, Mrs. Du Bois, I'm not sure, one of those, is that in 1936, she took over the Negro unit in Chicago of the Federal Theater Project, and it was really failing. And she brought all of her skills, she had degrees in music and was a professor of music. Excuse me. And she brought all of that and her playwriting skills and her storytelling skills, and she actually made it, became really successful for one of the Negro units. It was one of the more successful ones of the project, which is amazing. Then we've got Wine in the Wilderness by one of my favorites, Miss Alice Childress. I just love her because she just didn't mince words. That's just what I love about her, right? Like, she didn't get her Broadway debut of Trouble in Mind because they wanted to change things, and she was like, no. And she said, now you can't do it. See what happens? I just love that about her. But Wine in the Wilderness is, comes into being towards the end of the civil rights movement. We've lost Malcolm X. We've lost Martin Luther King Jr. And she's really writing at the point of the height of the Black theater movement, where we really are looking at theater as revolution. And what is so beautiful is that the play may not be about revolution on a large scale, but revolution on a personal, community, individual scale. And it's just such a beautiful kind of, like, when you look at it in the context of that history, I think it's fascinating. And then we've got Home, which was written in 1979 by a wonderful man by the name of Sam Art Williams, who I actually worked with for a short period of time in my lifetime behind the scenes on a television show. And I had no idea he was a player. I worked with him for 2 years, and I had talk about how I studied Black American playwrights in college. And I'm working with this man who's actually, had plays on Broadway, worked with the Negro Ensemble Company. And I didn't know. I'm like, when I think about it, I'm ashamed. But what a beautiful play. Talk about like introspection and looking at self and trying to find where home was. And what I think is really amazing. So Sam Art Williams, he moved to New York in 1974. So he witnessed the Vietnam vets coming back. He witnessed the rise of drug use and homelessness and despair and all the things that was New York City in the late 70s and early 80s. And this play, in a weird way, encompasses all of that, and really, again, is about this introspection, this idea of where home is. And for me, I think that the series of plays really gives us a good little taste of each era of these incredible playwrights, but also gives us the opportunity to look into those time periods and see who else was writing and what else was going on. Some of these scripts are lost to time, but the ones that you can get your hands on them. Read them. Jill, do you want to? I might be a little excited about this project. Jill, do you want to talk about some other web sources that we have?
Yeah, absolutely. Nafisa, I think you hit the nail on the head that these plays are just the beginning. Once you start looking into, we found like, here's an incredible writer from the Harlem Renaissance. Here are all of the other people who were also active artists at that time around her. It's an endless look at potential resources. So we've attempted to share some more on our website. There's no way to be completely comprehensive, but we're trying to give you a little bit more information because our hope really is that Roundabout and lots of other theaters will just start producing these plays. And so we're trying to make that easy for everybody. And so our website is going to have a list of other plays that we came across in all of that extensive research that Anna was talking about. Some amazing plays that we came across that for whatever reason, we didn't end up including as one of our 5 readings because we could only do 5, but they're pretty amazing plays. We even threw in a couple that come from before the 20th century because they were just so amazing that we wanted to share those. So there's some titles there. So there's some writers that we want you to get to know. We also have a really wonderful series of essays. It's called the Literary Ancestry Series, and it was curated by Roundabout's Tao Foundation playwright in residence, Dave Harris. He had this brilliant idea to look at the ways that our contemporary playwrights are in conversation with all of these writers who we're examining through the Refocus project. And so Dave worked with us to commission several of today's really exciting up-and-coming writers to write essays reflecting on a play that particularly spoke to them and a playwright who really meant something to them and felt like their literary ancestor. So those plays will be available on the website. We'll also be amplifying the work of some of the wonderful groups that Anna mentioned earlier who have been doing work like this for a long time, because one of the things that's important for us to recognize is Roundabout is certainly not the first theater to recognize that we need to be highlighting these plays. So we want to make sure you know all the other people who are doing it. Although when I say all, I'm sure we're not mentioning everyone again. There's so many great people doing this work, but we've highlighted some on our website who we've really engaged with and found to be very helpful in this process. And the theater talks, of course. We're going to have, as Nafisa mentioned, these wonderful theater talks, an individual one for each of the plays, really delving deep into some of the history that you started to touch on, to give you all of the context, because these plays really are a product of their own time. And it's helpful to have all of that information going in and looking at them, or particularly as we're doing these readings virtually this year, and Zoom sort of takes away your period piece context. So we're trying to add that element back in by giving you these great theater talks.
We're also super excited to be partnered with the New York Public Library, spanning its branches, the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, which, oh my gosh, that place is amazing, and the Library for the Performing Arts, also amazing. I mean, the New York Public Library systems, the whole thing is amazing.
Yeah, I also wanted to add that we're really pleased to be presenting this year's reading series in association with Black Theater United. All of the readings in the series are free and available to anyone who wants to watch them during the streaming window, but we are asking that folks who do watch them please consider a donation to Black Theater United. 100% of the donations to the Refocus project will directly support BTU. They're a really fantastic advocacy organization that's working to empower Black people, Black talent, and Black lives in the theater community and other communities across the country. So at the end of April, I will be hosting a panel called Toward a New Canon, a conversation with classics and Hedgepig Theater Ensemble, which is basically just what it sounds like. I'm going to be speaking with members of the wonderful organization Classics and Hedgepig Theater Ensemble, who put together an initiative called Expand the Canon that launched earlier in 2020. And we'll just be talking about kind of how they came to this work, what they're hoping to share with folks, particularly theaters who are looking to produce some of these lesser known plays. We just want to promote the idea that these plays are producible. And even though it's maybe a little bit harder to find scripts and other contextual information, that's where places like Classics and Hedgepig and hopefully the Refocus project can be helpful in making things a little bit easier. So please join us for that.
Awesome. Yeah, and Hedgepig actually is founded by people I went to grad school with.
Awesome. They're wonderful.
They're actually quite dear friends, and I'm very proud of all the work that they've done. And we also want to add that at the end of this reading series, we will have a community conversation. If you've never been a part of the community conversations before, it's really a place where you as an audience member get to share what resonated with you about the piece and to hear what resonated with other people about the piece or pieces. But for this, we're going to do it at the end of the reading series, currently scheduled for Wednesday, June 2nd, but keep an eye on our website just in case the dates change.
Yeah, and obviously there's a lot going on as part of the Refocus project. We're really excited about this initiative, and it's so important that, yes, these play readings are at the center of it, but there's so much else going on, and we're so excited to have everyone able to participate actively in, whether you're looking through the resources, watching a panel and asking a question, participating in the community conversation. There's just a lot of opportunity to engage with the work, and we all certainly believe that these works are very worth engaging with. So this has been your introduction to the Refocus project, and thank you so much for letting us tell you how much we love these plays and these playwrights. And we hope you really enjoy the 5 play readings when they start being available online on April 23rd. Please stream, and we can't wait to hear what you think. Thanks so much, everybody.